The first speaker is, in fact, I didn't know all this about him until he told me the other day, Cllr Ahmed Ali. Ahmed was born in Sylhet in East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh. He arrived in Oldham, so climate change there. He was educated in Greater Manchester. He's obviously clever. He studied chemistry at the University of Manchester, and thereafter he obtained a professional qualification in social work. He's had a successful career in social work for over 30 years and has carried out considerable equalities and human rights work. Ahmed became a Manchester City councillor for Rusholme Ward 9 years ago, and he's been lead member for race and equalities until recently. He's also a JP. Now, Ahmed has been in the country longer than probably some of you on the call. He's been in the UK for 55 years. I have to say he came as a baby. Well, not quite. He came as aged 10 years old. Anyway, over to you, Ahmed, who I'm sure will tell you all his very interesting story. Thank you, Ahmed.
Can I first and foremost thank the Muslim Jewish Forum for inviting me to talk this evening about myself. Can I also say that I am one of the founding members of the Muslim Jewish Forum, along with Afzal at its inception. Due to work, I have been involved with the Muslim Jewish Forum, although not too intrinsically, but I've been supporting the work of the Muslim Jewish Forum. Okay, a family. Why do people actually migrate? I mean, one of the things that I studied with Dr. Eleanor Kelly at the extramural department at Manchester University, going back a few years, and some of the stuff that came and alongside with the kind of Muslim thinking, you know, why do you migrate? There must be a war, there must be a disaster, there must be a flood, there must be, and people migrate for better their lives. But also they migrate because there is no work, there is no employment, and there is no future, there's no vision, there's, you know, and I suppose 1905 is when my father was born, and that's a long time ago, and obviously it was British India. Now, he, as he grew up, he went to the madrasas to study Islam and teach Islam. But having said that, I think it must have been when Gandhi was trying to promote the independence movement that he got the message or an advert to join the British Army. So I think he joined in the late 30s, really late 30s, 37, perhaps 38, 1930, joined the British Army, and he was based in Benares. Now, he wasn't married then, so his mother sent him a telegram to come home at the earliest possible opportunity. In those days, telegram. So I think he left on compassionate leave, and then his mother got him married. This was well before the independence, of course, of India in 1947. So once married, economics comes to them, you know, you need to have a good life, therefore no job. After British Army, he didn't want to go back to the madrasas. So he went to join the British merchant ship. So the story goes, as I heard verbally from my elders, and my father, he's no longer with us, is that he was in New York when my brother was born, Mahmoud. So I think the independence did take place. It was 1953 when my older brother was born. So he was in New York, and my mother sent him a telegram, also a letter, with my brother's fingerprint for him to return to see his son, the firstborn. So yes, and he came, and it was lovely, of course. And we are 5 brothers and 1 sister. I was born in 56. Now the other thing Heather forgot to tell, I grew up in West, in Karachi, so in Lalukat. So I had the experience of both east end of Pakistan as well as the West Pakistan. It was interesting in growing up in both countries, and so my father must have been kind of far-sighted and felt to better his life. So he's made the plan to move to UK. And we did so in 1966. Came pretty cold. Oldham, I often say, is a wind-battered town, pretty much deprived. But I enjoyed it. The first interaction when we came to Oldham was that my father knew, well, he worked in the mills at the time, knew a family who lived on Waterloo Street, and two young girls in December, obviously was snowing down. The two young girls appeared at our door to pick me up, and I felt embarrassed because hang on a minute, the girl's going to pick me up to take this. So anyhow, I fell down a few times on the snow, and it was Beaver Street Primary School up on the hilltop. And if you know this Oldham's kind of geography, you probably know what I'm talking about. Anyway, 3 months there, it was too far to walk. My father decided to get me back into Alexander Park School, which is near where we lived on Park Road. Anyway, so it was fun. But it was fun, but also there's been my first interaction with a white lad. He called me Packy Go Home. This is kind of dented in my head, and I slapped him because at the time I didn't know the word Packy meant. So I slapped him. Why is he calling me a Packy? Excuse my language, sorry, but it's derogatory. But I hope I'm amongst friends, no offense to no one. Yeah, so I slapped him, and he went cried to the head teacher, and obviously the head teacher I told my part, and I didn't get anything, but he just told me not to slap him, but to report. Anyhow, that was my first interaction of racism. As I was growing up, I have to say, Oldham gave me the lift, and I enjoyed the living there. One of the things that my father always taught me is that if you don't want to study, that's fine. If you don't want to go to college, university, that's even fine. But obviously there may be a job round the corner, which is sorry to say, he used to say you can't become a bin man. so I don't think it was a push for me either to become a bin man or I wanted to success, and one of the highest aspiration was to become a doctor. My father passed away in '79, and when I was doing my final year A-levels, and I didn't exactly get a great deal of, I did apply for medicine, but I didn't get a good enough A-level result, so hence I did chemistry instead. So here we are, growing up in Oldham in the '70s, encountering the people were in general nice, but there was the far right stuff in the mid '70s, the skinheads. I do remember my younger brother getting beaten up, coming home, and both of us went to learn kung fu to self-defense. At the time was the Bruce Lee stuff coming out as well, if you remember. Yeah, so we wanted to defend ourselves, because we can't have this kind of. He's got beaten up and was pretty bitter about it, yeah, again, racial. The other thing I observed in my fourth year in the secondary school is that it was to do with race and things like that, because the concept of racism and racial manifestations hadn't occurred in my kind of thinking. And I always felt equal, if not better than other people. Not to boast about it, but I felt I'm equally good as someone else who is white or any color. What I saw was a barbed wire and a black fist saying "Black Power." This is in the sort of '70s. Now, and at the same time, I think our head teacher, Mr. Dowson at Grange School, run current affairs lessons. There was a lesson called Current Affairs. And in it, he was pretty good in telling us about what his apartheid was about and the sort of black sort of equalities and what was happening, the segregation around Americas, where people didn't use the same bus, and it gave the historical perspective of how apartheid system works. So that also gave me a kind of understanding of what was happening. Lo and behold, of course, I tried my best to do my work, did my A-levels. Sadly, my dad passed away in '79. I came to the university to do a chemistry degree, did that. Now, that's another thing. I applied for a few jobs, and out of frustration, my third or fourth application was to Oldham Council. It was for a community development officer with the inclusion of a secondment back to university to do a social work job. one of the key things I always loved working with people, hence leaving the chemistry aside, I went to do analysis of communities and do work with the communities in terms of what was there. So my first recall was to do a position statement of social services and its engagement with the black minority ethnic community, predominantly the Muslim communities within Asian communities in Oldham. So within 18 months, I was sent back on a full pay back to university to do a CQSW because the social work need was there. And I got qualified and went back to work with the Oldham Council up to 1995. Statutory social work. Back end of social work, I did generic child protection. I got involved with then adoption and fostering, which was an area of my interest. And then in 1995, there was another opening. I actually looked at myself and said, hang on, are you going to retire from social work or are you going to do something else? So an opening was in Tameside, and I was suggested by one or two friends to apply for it. And I did, and I got the job as the Director of Race Relations in Tameside. That was in 1995. And from 1995 to 2011, I was there in Tameside. Whilst the changes in legislation was taking place, equality, there was three commissions, the EOC, the CRE, and the DRC. The initials are Disability Commission, the Equality for Gender Commission, and the Commission for Race Relations, all wound up to become the Equality and Human Rights in 2008. So I had to bid to the new commission to get the funding. So we became Equality and Diversity Centre of Excellence in Tameside, and I covered 5 local authorities in the AGMA area. It was very, very interesting because I've always kind of, positively challenged the institutions, the heads of services, whether it was the Manchester University chancellors, whether it was the head of, the directors or the chief execs. So in a strategic way, I tried to develop and promote the service from Tameside. I had 3 legal officers working for me, and we dealt with the 9th strand of discrimination. And I hope I've made an impact. And also with the 3rd sector, I've worked with the 3rd sector as well. I took those in 2011, the funding for my organization was coming to an end in all some ways, and I saw the far side. Sorry to use try to be non-political, but the Tories came in, and the funding for the EHRC was depleted. I, in some ways, just got out. I had a car accident as well. I had a back problem, so I resigned and left. And obviously, 2011, I was chairing the branch, by the way, chairing the Labour Party branch in Russia. To be honest with you, I didn't want to go into politics and become a councillor, but I did have a jab at it in 2004, the war year. I stood in the city. I lost by 100 votes. But after that, it took almost 10, 11 years for me to motivated by my colleagues to become a councillor representing the Russian ward. And lo and behold, I fought the election in 2012 and won the election. So I haven't actually, to be honest with you, I often say this is my 3rd job, because the first job was in Oldham, the second job in Tameside, and this is my 3rd job in Manchester as a councillor. So hence, as Heather says, I am involved with quite a number of things. I've just left this year as the race lead. I'm the audit chair, and also I'm in the adoption panel. So I try to contribute. Oh, by the way, I'm also the chair of the Manchester SACRE, which is the Standing Advisory Council on Religious Education. I relish those positions and try to influence the relationship, the cohesion, and always believed in, people can live in harmony as long as the basic tenets of human rights are actually given. So those are in my kind of system and DNA, is to say, where there is discrimination, where there is harassment, where there is inequality, I will ask the question of the scrutiny of institutions. I think I was involved with the reporting of the GMP, Greater Manchester Police, saying with the institutionally racist. I was in the thick of it, and the Oldham riots. I was working in Tameside. I was in the thick of it. So in terms of working in collaboration and a strategic manner in influencing, whether we now call it the systematic racism or the inherent racism or the unbiased, whatever, unconsciousness, I try to prod and probe and see where can we actually see the issues are and how we can resolve. I think I'm probably coming to an end of my speech, and perhaps I'll stay there. I've loved and relished living in this country. I'm a granddad, and fourth generation are here. And yes, this is my country, this is my city. And as we say, I mean, this is the knowledge capital of the world, I often say. And I remain at that point, so I represent Russia